Hello and welcome to Mysteries of Science. My name's Dan and I'm the editor of The Week Junior Science and Nature, which is the monthly magazine from the team behind The Week Junior.
And I'm Michael, the acting deputy editor.
Where did you come from?
I teleported here, of course, straight from the end of the last episode 2 weeks ago.
But how? I don't get that. How do you do that?
Now, on this podcast, we explore the strange phenomena and bizarre events that have left scientists and Dan scratching their heads, and despite their best efforts, remain well and truly unsolved.
No, you're definitely going to tell me how you did that. I'm confused.
With the Marvels out now in cinemas, where superheroes Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel find themselves trading places with each other, we thought we'd explore whether or not humans will ever be able to travel across the world in just the blink of an eye.
Michael, I love the idea of teleportation. I'm very intrigued. I've got lots of questions for you.
Well, Dan, we've got some expert guests who might have the answers. This is Mysteries of Science.
Okay, Michael, teleportation. You seem to already know a lot about it and what you're doing. So tell me, where do we start? How do I get started?
Well, Dan, despite just teleporting here myself, I am definitely not an expert on the subject, but thankfully I know someone who is.
My name is Dr. Jorge Cham. I am a cartoonist, someone who draws comics and cartoons and writes books usually about science and scientists, and trying to find fun and interesting ways to make it all accessible to people.
Hi, Jorge. Welcome to the show. So tell us a little bit about your books.
Yeah, my new book is called Oliver's Great Big Universe. It's out now. It actually came out a couple of weeks ago here in the US and also in the UK and also several places around the world. And it's a really great book for kids because it explains all of these amazing things about the universe, how big it is. It explains black holes, dark matter, dark energy. But it does it in a really fun and funny way. So it's about this kid named Oliver who decides he wants to be an astrophysicist, except he doesn't really know what that means. And so he explains all of these super cool concepts in ways that kids can really understand, relating them to things that happen to him in the cafeteria, for example, or what happens to him on a road trip with his parents. It's a really fun read, and I hope kids here check it out. And so kids can find the book at greatbiguniverse.net.
Sounds great. Excellent. I think we need to start with the basics here. Could you tell us exactly what is teleportation?
Yeah, teleportation is something that humans have been dreaming about for a long time. I mean, the idea of being in one place 1 second and then being in another place another second without actually having to walk from one place to the other or travel by car with your parents for a long time sounds great. And so it's something people have been dreaming about for a long time. There are sort of different ways to teleport that people have been writing about in movies and TV shows. For example, sometimes teleportation is kind of like you step through a doorway, and when you walk through the door, you're in a totally different place. Or sometimes teleportation is that you suddenly disappear from where you are and you appear somewhere else. And so there are different kinds of teleportations that people have been thinking about.
Okay, so there are two kinds of teleportation then that Jorge was talking about. One is where you step through a door into another place, a little bit like the monsters in Monsters, Inc. And the other is when you disappear and then reappear somewhere else, kind of like how they do in Star Trek or Doctor Who. Now, I wonder, out of those two, which one is closer to reality?
So in the kind of where you can just step through a door and appear somewhere else, there is an idea in science called a wormhole, which is something theoretical that scientists haven't actually seen firsthand, but they think that might exist, maybe at the center of black holes, which is like a tunnel in space that if you go into that tunnel, you go in one point of space and you come out somewhere else in the universe. And that sounds great. The only problem is that so far it's only theoretical and that you kind of have to go into a black hole to really go through it. It might be possible to have one without a black hole, but scientists don't really have a good theory about how to do that, how to make a wormhole. But it is sort of, in terms of how scientists think that the universe works, it is technically possible to have a wormhole.
Okay, so wormholes are these essentially like doorways or portals in space, and they're theoretically possible, but they're not proven yet. Is that right?
Yeah, and even if they were real, it doesn't exactly sound like the most practical way of teleporting.
So what about the other one you were talking about, Michael? Could we just like instantly transport our bodies to somewhere else.
Now, in terms of the kind where you kind of disappear in where you are and then you appear somewhere else, the thing that definitely science says that can happen is that you can have something happen like that instantaneously, meaning like without any time passing at all from when you disappear to when you appear, because nothing in the universe can really move faster than the speed of light. That's kind of a hard speed limit that the universe has, and that includes not just light or things that can move that fast, but also information. So not even, for example, gravity can move faster than the speed of light. Like if the gravity we're feeling from the sun right now, that's making the Earth go around in an orbit, that is actually 8 minutes old, the gravity that we feel from the sun. So if the sun disappeared suddenly or decided to teleport off to a vacation, for example, we wouldn't really feel it here on Earth for 8 minutes, because that's how long it would take for the information of the gravity to get from the sun to us, because it's so far away.
I have to say, I don't like the idea of the sun deciding to just teleport away and take a little holiday.
No way. That sounds like a terrible idea, especially I think we'd need more than just 8 minutes warning as well. Pack some things, get ready.
Got some things to do. I need more than 8 minutes.
Exactly.
But it's interesting what Jorge was saying there about this sort of natural speed limit of the speed of light, which would seem to put a bit of a block on that sort of instantaneous teleportation that we see in the movies.
Yeah. Okay, so what if it wasn't quite as fast as light? I mean, still fast enough to be like quicker than hopping on a plane, but slow enough to make it actually possible. So we don't have to have the ultimate, just a little bit below that.
So as long as you're okay with teleportation taking a little bit of time, maybe a blink of an eye, or at least as fast as light speed can go, then it is sort of possible to teleport that way. Not by actually moving your body and moving it from here to there, but maybe by copying your body. Like if you have a machine here that reads all the atoms and the molecules in your body and says, okay, this is what Dr. Jorge looks like, and this is what his brain cells are like, and this is how they're all connected to each other. You read that as information, then you transmit that through light or through radio waves somehow to another part of the galaxy, for example, and somebody there then uses some machine to maybe 3D print me a copy of me there, or maybe grow a copy of me and then make it so that it was exactly the way that I am now here over here. Sort of like instead of like sending your friend a Lego, something that you built out of Legos, instead of sending it to them, maybe you break it down, you write down the instructions for how to build it, you send them the instruction, and then your friend rebuilds it where they are. And that would be one way to sort of copy yourself and maybe teleport to another planet or to another galaxy. That is technically possible according to science.
You know, I've always wanted a little Lego figure of myself, but I didn't imagine it quite like this.
Yeah, I think this probably is going to create all sorts of problems as well, right? Because so you're going to be in one place and then you're going to be built up in another place. Which one's the real you? Is it the first one, or is it the new one, or are they both you? What happens to the old copy of you? Do we have to destroy it?
And just think how many versions of you there would be if you were using this machine all the time. There could be hundreds of Dans all across the universe.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I could just be lying in bed at work. Another one of me could be doing a podcast. Just think how productive I'd be. And all the things that I want to do, I could just do them all. Who doesn't want more of me?
I'll leave that question open-ended for the listeners.
Right, okay. Yeah, not quite the answer I was expecting there. Anyway, we are getting into some sort of mind warp territory here. So Jorge needs to beam us up out of here. You've outlined the different types of teleportation and how they could be achieved. Is there any way to make this sort of Lego instructions idea a reality?
Well, Dan, why don't we talk to our next guest who actually peered into the future to see whether or not we'd all be using teleportation devices.
Hi, my name's Kathryn Hulick. I write about science for kids and teens, and I'm the author of the book Welcome to the Future. robot friends, fusion energy, pet dinosaurs, and more. And so that's a book about how the world could change in the future if technology advances in certain ways. And it's also about how we want the world to change. So what do we want the world to look like in the future?
Welcome back, Kathryn. Some of our loyal listeners may remember Kathryn from previous investigations that we've done on Mysteries of Science. She's helped us out when we were investigating aliens, UFOs, King Tut's curse. So very glad to have you back, Kathryn. Could you tell us a little bit more about your book, and also where does teleportation come into it?
Yeah, so I picked 10 different, really cool futuristic technologies to talk about in this book, and one of them was teleportation. So in each chapter, I kind of open with this description of what the world could be like if this technology were real. And then I go into, well, is it actually possible? And do we want it to be possible? And so teleportation was an interesting one because it's pretty much the only one that I discovered this really can't be real. At least not physical teleportation that, takes your body apart and puts it back together somewhere else, as in Harry Potter or Star Trek.
Ah, right. Well, that kind of seems to have just killed our investigation stone dead there.
But why, Kathryn? Why is it so impossible?
It's really just the complexity and the numbers and the physics. So as a really cool comparison that I found recently, this isn't in the book because I just found out about it not that long ago, but there was a group of researchers that mapped out all the neurons in a teeny tiny speck of mouse brain, like the size of a grain of sand. And so obviously if you're going to teleport a human, you need to map out the entire human brain plus all the rest of the body. So, okay, we've got a mouse brain the size of a grain of sand. So they sliced this brain speck into 25,000 pieces and took more than 100 million pictures, and they discovered 100,000 neurons with 1 billion interconnections in that size of a grain of sand. And so that took 5 months, 2 million gigabytes of computer storage, and that's just that tiny little speck. So it's almost impossible to imagine how much storage space and time it would take to process an entire human brain. And the mouse had to be dead to do this, by the way, because they had to slice up its brain. So if you're going to figure out all the information in a human body in order to teleport it, first you got to kill the person, and then you've got to spend an extremely, almost unimaginable amount of time and energy processing all that data. There was another calculation from 10 years ago that found with the data speeds available at the time, it would take 350 times longer than the age of the universe to transport all the information in a person, if you could get it somehow. So these numbers are just completely unbelievable. There's just so much information contained in our bodies, even in the tiniest little pieces the size of a grain of sand.
Yeah. Cheers. Yeah, this is sounding a lot less appealing now. I was quite pro teleportation, to be honest, but if you have to be dead in order to do it, I might sort of give it a miss,
Technically, you wouldn't have to die if you have a way to map the whole body and brain without killing someone. I mean, that's certainly conceivable that we could come up with a way to do that. But then if you're able to transport that information and, then build a human brain and body, that's another problem altogether. There's all these ethical issues of, then you could copy someone. You're not just moving them, you're copying them. So you could have multiple versions of you running around. So, but again, all the steps along the way, every single step is pretty much impossible. The step of gathering all the information in a person, the step of moving it somewhere else, and then the step of building a person once that information is there. Every single one of those steps has huge problems with it in the physics and the numbers and just, it just does not seem realistic.
Okay, so if teleporting humans is pretty much impossible, then what about teleporting other things like objects? If I wanted to teleport some food over to Dan right now, or teleport my teddy bear somewhere, would that be possible?
I'll have some chocolate chip cookies, please.
You got it.
Well, the really cool kind of teleportation that actually is possible is quantum teleportation. And this gets into some really complicated science, but basically there's these tiny little particles that are even smaller than atoms, these little tiny quantum particles that can become entangled, which means that basically what happens to one particle means that something will happen to the other particle. Like if you can measure one, you know what the state of the other one is going to be. And it doesn't matter how far apart they are. They could be, a universe apart. And no matter what, if you measure the one that's right next to you, you know the one that's a universe away is going to have a certain measurement. And so this is not useful for teleporting humans, but it is useful for information because it means that you could separate two things and you could be able to tell what the information is and the thing that's very far away just by measuring the thing that's close to you. So this is actually super important for quantum computers in the future. Like this could be a way to basically instantly transport information. We could teleport information using this.
Yeah, you may remember us talking about this idea in our quantum weirdness episode. So quantum entanglement, isn't it? When two atoms can affect each other and the state of what I'm getting confused here, but like what the state of one affects the state of the other one despite them being separated. I think that's just what Kathryn said as well. Repeating what she said.
Maybe this is the proof of teleportation that we've been looking for all along. So not teleporting humans, but teleporting information.
Yeah, and in a way, actually, don't we do that already? I mean, aren't we doing that right now? Like, Michael, you and I are teleporting our voices to each other almost instantaneously, and our video pictures, despite us not being in the same room.
Yeah, I mean, what are video calls if not instantly teleporting your face and voice to another place?
Yeah, you're totally right. That is maybe another form of teleportation, which is that you don't maybe physically transfer yourself or you don't create a copy, but you just kind of put your mind there in a way. Like if maybe you, in the UK there, you could build a robot with cameras all around and with maybe like a robot arm that then I can see through here in the US with maybe virtual reality goggles so I can look around and maybe I have a joystick or something that can control the arm there and I can make my robot walk around London, for example. It would be almost like I was there, really. And so maybe we're not that far away from practical teleportation.
It's not physical teleportation, but we do have virtual teleportation already. Thanks to virtual reality and augmented reality, kids already take class trips to distant national parks by, putting on a headset and going there through a computer. And as virtual reality gets more and more realistic, this could feel like you're actually there, and it could feel like real teleportation. And another cool idea I talk about in the book is, what if there were a robot at this distant location that you could kind of take control of through virtual reality? So you could kind of step into this robot body and like go on a hike or go on a mission to the moon or travel into the deep sea. And your body is still safe at home, but you are teleporting with the help, by controlling this robot in a distant place. It's almost like the ultimate gaming experience, I guess. So this is a form of teleportation that is very real and is happening right now.
It's funny how Jorge and Kathryn both had the same idea there. Maybe we all need to go into business together and make this robot teleportation device a reality.
Yes, I'm up. I'm in, please. But now, even if human teleportation isn't possible, I have to ask Kathryn and Jorge, like, where would you go if you could teleport?
So if I do have like the Star Trek, beam me up transporter, I think it would be amazing to have that. It would be, distance would no longer matter. As I write in my book, Welcome to the Future, you could go to any national park in the world to walk your dog. Your parents could work in a distant country and come home for lunch. You could go to school and then come home and, grab some thing you forgot and go right back to school again. It's like of course, I'm sure there'd be some cost to this travel, but let's say that it is very cheap and easy and painless and you don't have to die and all those things. It would really change everything to be able to have distance no longer matter.
Oh boy. I am not sure I would be adventurous enough to go to another planet just because, I would be the only person there. There wouldn't be a bathroom. There wouldn't be a refrigerator with food in it. It might be a little bit dangerous, but I would love to be able to teleport to different places here on Earth. Like, on a Monday, I feel like going to Malaysia and checking out some of the amazing things that there are to see there, or to taste some of the amazing food they have there. I would love to just be able to walk out my door and be somewhere else in the world. And then it'd be great to explore just the Earth that we have here. That sounds really fun.
Those are two great answers. How about you, Dan? Where would you go if someone gave you a teleportation device right now?
I mean, this is amazing. You know, it would be an amazing world-changing technology if you could just teleport yourself anywhere you liked. And so I would use it for probably the most mundane of tasks. I mean, I just love the idea of, instead of having to get up and walk to the train station and take the train and then take an underground tube to get to work, I could just bing, appear at work. So I would probably, you know, even though you could, the possibilities are endless, I would probably use it for sort of quite normal everyday tasks like popping to the shop and going to work. And hopefully, like Kathryn said, there would be no cost attached, because I would probably completely overuse this technology as well.
Yeah, me too. I'd use it just to avoid having to walk up the stairs to my bedroom. I'd just be using it all the time. Go to the kitchen, everything. Wouldn't move a single muscle that I didn't have to.
Cup of tea, bing, and right next to the kettle.
Exactly. So I think it's time that we bring out our old friend, the mysteryometer. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a scale from 0 to 100, with 0 being we know nothing and 100 being we know everything. So on this scale, Jorge, how close are we to achieving teleportation?
Yeah, great question. I would estimate that if we're talking about the kind of virtual teleportation you just talked about, where I'm just kind of controlling a robot and seeing through the robot somewhere else, I would say we're pretty much at a 99 or 100 with that one, which actually is a great idea. Somebody should just start a company right now to do that. So I would say we're at about 100 or 99 with that technology. But maybe in terms of like reading the atoms in your body and rebuilding them somewhere else, that one, we are pretty far away. I would say maybe we're at a 25% score there. And then in terms of using a wormhole, we're still pretty far away on that one. That one's not just theoretical, but maybe impossible to survive to go through a wormhole. So I would say that's maybe a 1 or a 2 out of 100.
It's a really interesting mystery we've got ourselves here, because depending on how we look at it, we've either cracked it or we're miles away from having solved it, really. So I mean, like, we've got teleportation that's possible in terms of video calls, and maybe even like going to sleep and waking up in the morning as a sort of form of teleportation. Or but the actual physically disappearing from one spot and re-manifesting, becoming visible in another spot miles away, I think looks quite unlikely at the moment. So we'd love to hear from you now. We'd like to know, where would you go if you had your own teleportation device? You can send us a voice note by heading to funkidslive.com/mysteries and hitting the big red button, or email us at hello@science-nature.co.uk.
And don't forget to join us in 2 weeks' time for our next mystery, where we'll be exploring the quest for eternal life and asking whether you can live forever. Until then, stay curious.
Stay curious.